Welcome to Beyond the Norms, the podcast where we question the rules, challenge traditions, and rethink the everyday standards shaping our society. From education and religion to culture and lifestyle in Nigeria, we dive deep into the issues that matter, spark conversations, and inspire fresh perspectives. I am Onwodizion Emeka and I'm here with my co-host Nwobi Ikenna Jude. Together we will explore what happens when we dare to think differently. So what's up, Ike? I want us to talk about something that has been on my mind lately. I've been doing a lot of introspection and I've been in my head. So we are done now, and I've been thinking, what's the next step? Like, what do we do now? So I've not been able to figure out things. So I've been thinking back to the beginning, how all of this started from writing jam and all of that. So I wanted to ask you because there's something I term the jam obsession because I can remember the period when I was preparing for my jam, from writing the jam, registering for the jam. It was one of the lowest moments of my life because I could remember I was always so anxious about I go pass, whether jam go jam me and stuff like that. So I wanted to know, how was the whole jam experience for you?
Okay, for me, it was long after I had left secondary school before I actually made efforts to go back to school again. Just because I had them for financial reasons actually. So for me, it wasn't really the jam stuff wasn't really something I panicked about.
Are you saying you had no pressure from your family, from society, this one never go school, this one never gain admission, like you failed jam or something like that?
Okay, considering that there has always been there's pressure from the society, what society expects of everyone. Society at least expects you to pass those examinations, and so there's pressure in terms of that too.
Yeah, there's always this cloud over your head. See, if I feel this jam go jam you and stuff like that. So the whole concept of jam, do you think is something that should be scrapped? Do you think jam is a gatekeeper that ensures that the people that comes into the university are people that actually merit it, or it's like a roadblock that has stopped a lot of people from getting admission into the university? Do you think it should be scrapped totally?
From the word gatekeeper and the roadblock that you mentioned, yeah, I assume that they mean advantage and disadvantages of jam. So I'll first of all say one or two about the advantage and disadvantage. For advantage, I feel like is a way of standardizing entrance examination into tertiary institutions in Nigeria. So it's okay in that sense. Based on we have a standard exam across the whole country that everyone can actually do this examination, and we don't go about expecting some people to have a simpler examination in other places. So it's just a standard way of doing it. But in terms of the roadblock, JAMB itself is not really a measure. I don't feel like it's a measure of it assesses people properly.
Okay. Because personally, me, I feel like WAEC is enough. WAEC and post-UTME. What's the point of JAM again? Because you see, one of the major issues that I feel most of us and most youths face with the issue of JAM is that JAM is a computer-based test, and most people don't, prior to their writing JAM, don't have experience with computer-based exams. And these are some of the issues that I feel like has stopped people from passing the score or performing better. Because I had cases when I was writing my own, maybe say, you see some people while they were writing, their computer would off, they will start again, it will off again. So that kind of situation can even demoralize you, even if you know what you are doing.
Yeah, exactly. So Jamba has always Jamba has that this thing, and I feel like over time they have improved on it. I also don't think it should be scrapped for that reason. For WAEC being the standard for gaining admission into universities. I wrote WAEC and I know how things work across in fact in many places there are these special centers in WAEC. JAMB, one good thing about JAMB is that they've made sure that, a good extent, they've made sure that that situation is not applicable in their own examination. So WAEC they have these special centers, and I don't feel like
JAM has special center too.
If there's a special center, I'm not really sure of that, but
Jam, they
I
have
feel like they have kept measures in to a good extent
to
that
checkmate.
yes, to checkmate those special centers and everything. But is Nigeria, and in most cases, many things are possible.
Okay, do you think with the current situation in the country and where Nigeria is today, do you think Nigeria has the adequate infrastructure to ensure that the whole process of taking this exam is smooth?
Yes, absolutely. I think we have what it takes to ensure that examination is smooth and
Some of these facilities we are talking about is constant electricity, and Nigeria doesn't have that.
yes, the idea of constant electricity, approved centers for examination should have a means of supply of electricity, so that when electricity from the grid is cut off by any means, there is immediate restoration of electricity from the center. So I feel like any center that should be there for JAMB examination should actually be inspected and approved worthy of taking the examination. So
Yeah. However, me personally, I feel like the whole jam thing should be scrapped out. Personally,
no.
because the whole mental. Do you know there was a point in my life when I was writing the jam where I told God, if I can just pass this jam, I'll worship you forever. I literally became, these sanctuary keepers that they call in church,
Yes.
where you clean just for this jam issue, because my wife was good, but this whole jam issue was, oh God. I personally think it should be scrapped out. There is something it does to your mental health that I don't think kids at that age are prepared for.
in my opinion, I don't think so. I don't think it should be scrapped entirely. I feel, but something else can be done about it. The government can try to standardize, make it more standard, like improve the examination, put things in place to ensure that those things that are lacking are accounted for in
Are put in
JAMB. And
place.
yes, so that's just
Well,
for me. If it's achieved that it becomes that standard, I feel like post-UME itself should be scrapped out. Like the
why?
universities that are taking post-UME it should be removed.
Post-UTME usually is an exam that is based on what the school wants. So the people that set these post-UTME questions are the lecturers of the school. Is the school question, but JAM is just a general assumed set of questions that they feel like every student that has come out from the secondary school should be able to attempt. But post-UTME is based on the school. The school knows what they want. They have their post-UTME cutoff mark. So
Well, in Nigeria, we have our curriculum, and across the whole schools, I feel like things are very similar across the whole school. So if there is a standard which JAMB should provide, if there is a standard, every school should be able to, agree with that standard. I don't feel like it's a waste of money to me sending your kids to the school to write post-UTME where they are not familiar with and all those things. In the end of the day, I feel like it's
okay,
it's
the
a way
whole
of wasting
traveling
money. Yes,
to
exactly.
So are you suggesting that they make it maybe like an online exam?
Yeah, that's also something. But I feel like in Nigeria there are a lot of examinations that are taking money from us. JAMB as well should also be improved on, in the sense that people should not write JAMB should not be invalid after 1 year. So
Okay.
exactly that thing they do, that after 1 year everything becomes invalid. It has to be checked as well. So
Okay.
because I could remember I had a very nice JAMB score, I think around 260 something. That was in my first attempt of it.
Of writing JAMB.
Yes, but I just because I did not gain admission into uni Ilorin in the end of the day. Based on, I don't know, I got a good score for their post-UTME, but I ended up not getting admission. I don't know for what reason it was. But the next year when I attempted it again, the next year I had to attempt it again, instead of just,
using the same
JAMB
Yeah.
and, trying to gain admission into UNIZIK, which is my preferred school. So
Yeah. So speaking, while I was listening to you speak, you mentioned something about the curriculum, and since we are speaking on the topic, if formal education in Nigeria is overrated, so I just picked out something. I want to know. I want to get your opinion. Do you think the curriculum that is used to teach students in Nigerian university today it's outdated? Do you think it matches with what the labor market is demanding?
definitely, it doesn't. It doesn't match with what's labor because labor markets wants people that have practical knowledge. So they need you to be able to apply your knowledge and solve problems at least to a good extent. But in Nigeria, we emphasize so much on theories. So when you come out and you find out that in the industry you can't transform those theories into practical, it becomes a problem. So that's the challenge we have with the Nigerian curriculum. So I feel like at some point, I mean at the moment, what we have is not very good, and government has to set up committees to look into it and try to make it fit what labor
How
markets.
often? How often do you think they should, recheck the curriculum? How often?
It's something that has to happen often time, because the world we live in is always evolving. So because of this evolution that is always happening, it has to happen at intervals that are not very far.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So in light of that, would you say formal education is overrated in Nigeria? Because I personally I feel like it's overrated. I feel like the emphasis that is put on, the whole idea of I think we should define what formal education is in our setting. I believe formal education to be a system of structured learning that involves a curriculum, a particular start and finish date in an environment where knowledge can be passed on, as in contrast to where you have vocational skill and the online learning and all of that. I feel formal education has to be in a physical environment with a structured curriculum and a set of, and at the end of the learning there is a certificate that is issued. So I personally feel like formal education is overrated. I feel like the emphasis that parents and society as a whole put on formal education is should not. I feel like we are majoring on the minor and minoring on the major in my own perspective being the practical knowledge and skills that are required for you to actually solve real life problems, because we are done with school now. We studied computer engineering. Can I really say that I'm a computer engineer? Can I solve problems in this discipline? The honest answer would be no. So I would love to get your opinion on that.
So I think to a good extent I disagree with you on this. Formal education is not overrated anywhere in this world, even in Nigeria. This is because formal education is a systematic way of educating people. So let's take science for example.
Okay.
The benefits of technology we are reaping today is as a result of science, and science is a systematic process of making inquiry about living and non-living things. So we can't just go into practicals. Everybody can't be artisans that actually go out and learn work. And so for a society to be productive, you need people that make researches and come up with something that actually works. That's what differentiates scientists with engineers. Okay, scientists make inquiry, and when they come up with law, engineers can then transform those law into something that's into technologies that are
Yeah.
beneficial to the society. So if we all go about learning work and becoming artisans, who's then going to make efforts to at least produce? Because any society that doesn't produce, I don't think that society is in the right path. Just like Nigeria, wherever we are consuming nation. That's the reason why, to a good extent, we are not we are not rich
As we ought to
as
be.
we ought to be. If we are producing nation, we should be converting these our natural resources that we have into finished
Okay.
products.
Okay, so in essence, you are saying formal education helps to imbibe you with the theoretical knowledge that is required for you to actually move into practicalization of all these things.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
but now my question is, does formal education actually give you all those things? Does it equip you with the formal education in Nigeria? Does it equip you with the adequate required theory that can now enable you to practicalize some of these things?
Yes, it's a standard theory. What we learn in the university here is those theories and laws that have existed and that have existed. So it's left for us. What I feel like university is lacking is teaching critical thinking. I mean, helping us to be critical thinkers so that we can then use those theories that we have learned,
Learn.
those laws that we have learned,
How can
and
these
transform it
universities,
into.
how can they teach us to be more critical thinkers?
Well, for us to be more critical thinkers, we need to be taught practicals. That's one of them. And
That brings me back to what I'm saying, that the practicality of these things is not there.
it doesn't really bring you back to what you are saying, in the sense that you what you have emphasized on is everybody becoming artisans. You
For
actually.
those that don't understand, can you define who an artisan is?
Artisan is actually somebody who goes out there to learn work. Maybe vulcanizer. A vulcanizer is an artisan. Somebody who plates hair and somebody who actually
Okay.
fits POP and plumbing, all those jobs like that. Those are what artisans are. So we can't all just go out there and start learning work. We need to at least, even if I do reckon that the situation is not very good at the moment.
Yeah.
But we can't just scrap university out. The essence of research cannot be overemphasized. We need to continue at least, and the government as well. We need support from the government to get things right. When we get those things right, I believe we'll be in the right track. So.
Okay, but do you think formal education guarantees employment? Because there's a statistics that was published by the National Bureau of Statistics, which says that workers with no formal education occupy across 99% of informal jobs. So we have people that have formal educations going more into informal jobs, occupying almost 99% of informal jobs. Why do you think this is? If formal education is supposed to prepare us for formal jobs, why then do we have more people with formal education going into informal jobs?
Well, I would like you to show light into what you mean by informal job before I kind of answer that question.
I would say an informal job would be something like maybe fashion designing, music and entertainment, acting, all of this. Instead of, having doctors and engineers. We have people that studied engineering going into music. We have people that studied engineering going into business. Why do you think this is?
I think the reason why people with formal education are taking up informal job is basically because they have not been equipped properly in the universities which they had attended.
Yeah.
So the research is the one of those are the stuff that are required to some extent, but government don't really fund researchers in Nigeria, and for that reason people will actually come out without knowing how to start up how to start apply what they have learned to start up
something and start solving problem.
Definitely. So
that's true, that makes sense. Okay, I would like us to just explore the history of formal education in Nigeria, because I've been thinking about it quite a lot. I'm a little bit curious. How did formal education come into, was there a way that education was being done differently to how it's done now? I don't know, was there a different type of giving out education before colonization by the British and all of that? How did formal education come into play in Nigeria and Africa at large?
Okay, I think what was in place before was this system of apprenticeship. And
Okay.
yes, so basically if you want to be better at something, you probably your parents will take you to somebody who's already good at that thing, and then they teach you how to do it. But as the Portuguese were the first people who came into Nigeria so they were able to establish a little bit of formal education, but there was resistance at that point. And because of this resistance, Portuguese were not able to stay very long in Nigeria, and then they went back until the colonizers, the British people, came in, and then they started they imposed the formal education on us. So
So you are saying it was the British that brought formal education into Nigeria.
we can't just underemphasize on what the Portuguese brought to us. Portuguese brought in something, but it's just that there was resistance and then they left. So the British were also there. I think the British were
Part of
part of it, and Portugal were part of it as well. Portuguese were part of it. So
Okay. Well, would you say we are better off now than we were back then?
definitely we were better off now because we there was no way we could have survived for so long. Life is always evolving, and for you to continue to live, you need to evolve too with life. So we are better off now. If we did not have formal education, just imagine what we would have been. I mean, if we were just behaving like animals or stuff like that. So it's definitely better off now.
Okay, speaking back to this issue about parents overemphasizing the importance of formal education, I want to ask, why do you think parents in Nigeria still place such high value on a university degree even when the job market is saturated?
Well, just like I said earlier, we all can't just go about learning work or doing this Igbo apprenticeship system.
Yeah.
So at some points, there are many of us, in fact, the value of education, the value of gaining this formal education cannot be overemphasized. Because when you come here, you don't just, it's not only education you are it's not only education on the course you are studying you are picking up education on so many other things. Music, for one, usually are emphasized on you learning in character. You'll be forwarding in character learning before you actually giving your certificate. So we are there are many things we are actually learning here. It's not just your course. So that's
Buttresses the point that you are trying to speak on. Okay, but like I feel like because you spoke about character and learning, are you saying the primary purpose of the university is to instill in you both learning as regards your discipline and character? I can, with the way the world is moving now, I can still get all of these things elsewhere. I can learn courses online. I can learn through life experiences. If that is the sole purpose of universities, why then are they still important?
The sole purpose of university, I feel like one of the main reasons why university is there is research, for research purpose.
How much of research do we do?
And that's the
at an undergraduate level.
That's the problem. Like we government has to support us at some points, because without that support of the government, that's the reason why Nigeria is still where it is. If we have enough research going on in this country, a lot should have been going better than what it is now.
Okay, let's go back to the issue of jams, because to be honest with you, I'm not yet fully convinced that this whole jam of a thing is quite important. Because you see, with over 75% of jam candidates scoring below 200 this year, do you think the exam is a fair measure of potential, or it's just a numbers game? Why do you think the failure rate of candidates that wrote jam this year was really high? I mean, 75% of jam candidates scoring below 200, which is literally the cutoff mark for most universities. Do you think the exam, like, what do you think that is? Do you think it's the secondary schools that are doing a poor job in preparing students for these exams?
I think as a nation we are failing, because if you watch what's happening in the society, you see that a lot of youths that should be in school, they are not really focused in education any longer. A lot of us want to just go about businesses that will fetch us money. So that alone should tell us why people are failing jam. Because if they're actually focused and they are willing to learn, I don't see reasons why they should be a lot of failure in jam.
Let's look at some more alternatives to formal education, because I know I've not been able to convince you yet that formal education is not really important, but let's just look at some alternatives, like chasing skills and dreams. Like, what do you say to that over degrees? Because it seems like we are chasing degrees without directions. Do you think like we should be focusing more on, don't you agree that we should be focusing more on our dreams, our skills, and doing things that make us happy, that solve more problems than just chasing paper degrees.
Okay, the skills, skills. I'm not against anybody going after skills, but what skills do you want to acquire in this sense now? You want to become a fashion designer. Those things are going to get our society working, but can we really match with what our counterparts are doing with just being fashion designers and plumbers and the rest of stuff? So if we want to really match what is obtainable out there, at some points we need to do what they are doing as well. So China did not get to these points which they are in a day. They knew that they had to acquire education. They knew that they had to boost their research, and so that they can transform their research into technologies. So if they went about becoming artisans, in the end of the day, they would not be where they are today. So formal education, I disagree with you when you say it should not, people should not emphasize on it so much.
Let's say it is not overrated, but do you think we are overdoing it? Because personally I feel like the amount of importance that is placed on it should not be so. Let's say, for listeners facing jam pressure, what is your advice? Would you say they should grind for the degree or explore alternative early enough in their life? Because personally I feel like if I could turn back the hands of the times, I think I would not have put so much pressure on myself, because now I'm done, and it's like almost like I'm going back to the beginning of. Although I agree that there are certain things that I've learned now, I'm a lot better thinker now, I've grown, but now I've seen the importance of having practical skills over just the degrees, because I have the degree now, but I still have to go back and get those skills. So for maybe jam prospects, what advice would you give to them? Would you say they should focus more on the degree or explore other alternatives early enough?
Well, I think at times people should not just jump into university the moment they are done. They should go about acquiring one or two skills after they have understood how things work outside of school. They can now go back to school. But I think also that people should, in most cases, go to school, because it will help them become better thinkers. And also, yes, definitely, it will help them become better thinkers. That's the reason why I think people should go to school.
So you are suggesting that we should have it's important that when people are done with their secondary school education, they don't just rush into taking jam and going into university. They should have maybe stay back a year to learn a couple of skills.
Yes. The problems we have require skills to solve. So people should go about learning one or two skills, and then they should go back to school, because I think school is very important.
I think I agree with that, because I think it was during my 300 level, I felt like I should have not rushed into the university. Maybe I should have taken back at least a year to just, learn a couple of skills before coming into the university.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Do you know anyone or any person that, dropped out of school at maybe a certain stage and currently they are thriving? Because we hear a lot of the tech giants over there in the world, like Mark Zuckerberg and the rest, saying they are school dropouts and they are thriving. What do you speak to people that argue and say last school and scam? After all, we have most of the top CEOs we have out there in the world are dropouts. What arguments can you speak to?
Well, it's not true that they might be dropouts, but that does not mean that they did not acquire education. Education is not
formal. Did they acquire?
Formal education? Yes.
They did not complete it, so obviously they did not get the full formal education.
Formal education is not only in school. It's only in school. In school, you acquire formal education. You could pick up books and read. Mark Zuckerberg, I think at some point, he dropped. Yes, he definitely dropped out from school, but he got formal education. He read and he got what he wanted, and he made use of it to establish what he.
So you are saying at the end of the day, formal education is not. But I think earlier enough we defined formal education as a structured, having a building and having, a degree, a certificate being issued to you on completion of the whole curriculum. So if that is the definition of formal education, I think it's safe to say that they did not fully have formal education.
It goes beyond that. There are some people who did not actually go to school, but they acquired formal education. Formal education is just this systematic way of teaching. You have it written down, well documented. That's what formal education is all about. But I think the practical which you emphasize on is basically going and seeing every day. Those guys don't have documented stuff on how things go on. You learn by seeing what they do. And then you ask questions, they tell you what. But formal education in this sense now, you pick up your book and read. So it doesn't necessarily have to be from the school you acquire formal education. You can also acquire it outside of the school.
Okay. So since we've agreed now that formal education is important, but having the practical knowledge is also important, how then should we balance formal education with vocational training, digital skills, and entrepreneurship in Nigeria today?
Well, as you go to school, you also have to at some point learn skills, and that's the reason why I think personally I think that with the emphasis on this first class should not be so much in Nigeria. So people also have to, or maybe school itself has to adjust its curriculum so that people can acquire skills while going to school. But as it is now, where school has not adjusted to that extent, people don't need to emphasize so much on the first class. They have to also acquire skills as they go to school, skills that are necessary, so that when they come out, they don't just seem lost. They can apply those skills and pick up with.
So if you were to pick, would you pick a first class degree over maybe a second class lower and up, or a second class up, and knowing that you have maybe the practical knowledge, bearing in mind that having a first class degree in Nigeria today opens you up to more opportunities like scholarship, getting a better job, you being picked first over others? Would you still pick a second class certificate over a first class degree?
I have not gone into job hunting, at least this white collar job. I've not gone into white collar job hunting to that extent. But I think that any serious entrepreneur should emphasize more on the skills, on the critical thinking, your ability to solve problems which you are bringing to the table, and not just whether you acquired first class or not. So, if you ask me, I'll pick a good. I'm not saying you should not get a good grade. If you ask me, I'll ask you not to actually stress yourself towards getting a first class. You can come out with a second class upper and you could be good at skills. That's enough for me, and I think that should be enough as well for any employer out there.
I think I agree. I think I agree to that. So what are some real world skills like entrepreneurship, digital literacy, and problem solving skills that you think are missing in the Nigerian academic curriculum today? Maybe courses that you feel like should be introduced into the curriculum that can help students and the general public solve problems, be more in tune to entrepreneurship and digital literacy. What would you add to the curriculum?
Well, if I'm to add courses to the curriculum which we currently have, it has to be practical because I'm very much familiar with engineering. So I'll use engineering as an example. I think recently I heard that UNIZIC had electronics and computer engineering has this PCB printing. Well, we are not making use of it.
Yes.
Just imagine if we can print we have a PCB printing machine, but we're not making. So just imagine if we can actually design it and print it. What is going to it's going to really help us a lot. Because instead of sending our works to our designs to China to help them print it and send it back to this place, we have the materials and everything it takes. We can just print those things here and we have it going easily.
So you are saying you introduce more practical oriented courses.
Yes.
So what are some of the courses that you think you would scrap out? You can give an engineering example.
Okay, an engineering example. Most of the year one courses we actually learn. I feel like they should, because we came into year one and we started doing physics, chemistry, and a lot of those stuff, which we have actually done in secondary school.
I think it's like
So
a refresher, not to refresh your memory.
we don't really need it. We don't.
You don't need it doesn't mean every other person doesn't need it.
Yeah.
I personally I needed it because we also gave a point where we said that students shouldn't rush into university, and if they should take that advice of staying back for probably a year minimum before going into the university, don't you think they would need like to have their brains refreshed on a couple of all these things? What do you think?
You see, these things are done sequentially. Even if it took you a year, I assume that you have learned those things already. There's no reason why you should come and start refreshing your head again. Even if, okay, let's say there ought to be refreshment, but it shouldn't take one full session of learning. It took 1 year away from us. We could have just completed engineering in 4 years.
So you're saying the entire 100 level was a waste of time?
Yeah, I think to a large extent, most of
Like
most
the
of
GS
what we
courses,
do is, most of what we do in 100 level is a waste of time, if you ask me. The GS could be okay too, because at some point we're not doing we've not at any point learned GS and all those things. But if we took away those chemistries, those physics that we did, those applied mechanics which are not necessary for electronics and computer engineering, if we replace them with vector mechanics that is necessary for learning electromagnetics, it would have equipped us properly for that electromagnetics. And yes, so I think most of those year one courses are a waste of time, if you ask me.
I think that makes sense. So if you were to redesign the entire university experience in Nigeria, the entire experience, not just adding or removing courses, just the entire university experience, what would you add or what would you remove based on your own experience?
Is it in terms of courses or
not? Just generally anything you would add or remove.
Okay.
In the university experience, because I believe university in Nigeria is more or less an experience.
Okay.
So what are the things you feel like that should be added? Maybe like more emphasis on religion or something like that.
Definitely not religion. I'm not going to ask them to emphasize on religion. Of course, if you want to get religious knowledge, you go to church. Churches are everywhere. So if I'm to redesign university experiences in Nigeria, I feel like yes, definitely people have to go into university, have to emphasize more on practical researches, because researches they are what give rise to technologies and everything we enjoy today. So we have to go back to the drawing board and implement researches. We have to emphasize so much on it. We are not emphasizing as much as we ought to. Yes, and we also have to do practicals. Those are things that the right percentage of it has to be infused into education for things to get working in Nigeria.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about some of the bodies that affect education in Nigeria today. We've spoken about parents, we've spoken about society, the students, and even some of the institutions. But I want us to speak a little to the government, because I feel like government also play a very crucial role in the type of education that is being dispensed to society. So what do you think are some of the policies and government issues that are affecting and undermining the educational system in Nigeria today?
I feel like the government has failed us. That's the reason why ASU keeps on going on strike every time. I can recall that very recently, one of my prof that has a good research that he could have done, to help to improve this electricity, the problem of charging an electric vehicle in Nigeria. But he is out there seeking for funds to do this research. But in a working society, it's very easy for him to access those funds. Once he's able to present his paper and they see that what he's doing is okay, they fund him immediately.
So funding is an issue.
It's a big issue. strike, underpayment of lecturer. That's the reason why they are going on strike. So government has failed us in terms of the policies and everything. So if government definitely has to invest much more than what is obtainable at the moment in education in Nigeria.
So who would you say has the bulk of the blame in terms of where Nigeria educational system is today? Would you say it's the students? Would you say it's the university, the institutes? Would you say it's the government, or would you say it's even the mentality of the current society today?
Well, I feel it's the society. Just like this.
You blame the society over the government?
I blame the society because the government is the product of the society. Okay. If in the end of the day, okay, look at the government. Isn't it obvious that the government is the product of the society? Because in the end of the day, we sometimes we see that the right person comes out and wants to get our votes, but we vote the wrong persons because of different affiliations. So if the society is not doing bad, the government itself should also not do bad. Yes.
I think that makes sense.
The government should take the most blame. The society should take the most blame in this case.
Okay. So I want to get your final thoughts. Finally, let's just hit the nail on the head. Are we chasing degrees for status, or do they still hold real value in 2025 today?
I hate to say this, but you see, in Nigeria, I feel like a lot of people are chasing the degree for status. It's not to genuinely impact on the society. Because if we have people that genuinely want to impact on their society, things should change as well. If we have a lot of, just imagine the number of people we have in Nigerian universities. Let's assume just 70% or even 80% want to impact on the society that they live in. With the little resources we have, we can change the narrative that is in place at the moment. So I will say a lot of us are chasing this
for status.
For status, yes.
I think I agree. So for our listeners out there, I want you, if you were to give a single piece of advice to maybe any JAM candidate, any students currently in the university, maybe doing their masters, PhD or whatever, what single advice would you give them to ensure that they are not just chasing degrees and proving the narrative degrees without directions? What advice would you give to any of them?
Okay, advice I would give to listeners. I would say, come if you have to. Definitely, you should desire formal education. It is very important. It helps you to improve your critical thinking. In fact, it doesn't just have to be. It definitely doesn't just have to be what the university gives to you. When you come into the university, you have to read extensively. And from what the school gives to you as well, you should desire to make impacts in the society. In that way, you are not on the point that students are chasing degree without direction.
Thank you so much, Ikena. It was a pleasure having you today.
It was nice being on the show.